Chapter 9 of the book Path to Enlightenment. The 8 pure primary properties: conventional truth and absolute or universal truth. It was on the full moon day in the month of May over 2600 years ago when the Lord Buddha realized full awakening that he analyzed and understood the higher teachings. Examining this 1 fathom long body, he realized that it was made up of various parts such as hair, nails, teeth, skin, bone, muscles, heart, liver, lungs, blood, tears, mucus, etc. Conventional truth labeled these conglomerations of solid and liquid body parts as the body. When examining further, the Buddha realized that the body and these parts could be dissected into 4 primary or source elements based on their properties or nature. These elements are known as the 4 great elements, or in Pali term Satara Maha Dhatu, as follows. The earth element is known as Patavi Dhatu, has the nature or property of hardness and softness, rough and smooth, and heavy and light. Those are the characteristics or conditions of the earth element. Then the second one, the water element, known as Apo Dhatu, has the nature or property of cohesiveness, conjunction, and collapse separation. It is also known as the nature of fluidity. Then the third one, the fire element, known as Tejo Dhatu, has the nature or property of heat and cool. Then the fourth one, the air element, known as Vayo Dhatu, has the nature or property of expansion, contraction, and movement. It is also known as the nature of pressurizing. These 4 properties are having color, known as Varna, then the taste, known as Rasa, smell, that is known as Gandha, and the energy, known by Oja. These 8 properties arise or come into being all at the same time. They do not arise consecutively. The body that looks solid, which we can see and touch, and is subjected to gravitational forces in the conventional truth, it is just a naming convention. The reality is the body or form, known as Rupa, as it is also called because of its absence of any substance, is really compared of these 8 unique source or primary properties. That primary property known as Suddhastaka Dhatu. This reality, absolute truth or universal truth, applies to all animate, living and inanimate, non-living objects. If you examine a vehicle, building, or even a marker pen, they have all been given a conventional name so that they can be identified. These names will change based on the language used and it is required to identify the object. However, when it is dissected into its component parts by one's mind, as the Buddha did, one sees that in reality there is no solid substance. The reality is that each of these objects is comprised of many primary or source elements, each of which has the 8 properties described above. The importance of these 8 source properties, however, is their lifespan. They arise and pass away swiftly. They live for only 17 thought moments, known as in the Dhamma Chittakshana. The Buddha uses the word impermanence, that is anicca, to show the aging and decaying that occurs in these 17 thought moments. These 8 are known as Suddhastaka and they are indivisible or have unbreakable properties. All form, that is known as Rupa, animate and inanimate, are made of these 8 unique properties. The proportions of each of the qualities, however, are varied depending on the object. We identify each object as being of earth, water, fire, or air element based on the predominant quality. Despite this identification, all 8 properties are present in all objects. Identification of the 4 great elements. How do we identify these qualities of matter? How do we prove to ourselves the truth of this reality? The main characteristics of these 4 states of elements are that you cannot distinguish each from the other independently. We can only identify or recognize them when they are together because they arise, exist, or decay and pass away together. When they are together, they can be identified or recognized by seeing, hearing, sensing, or mental review. So, we can identify the earth element. How do we identify the quality of Patavi or earth element in an object? We identify the earth element by touch. We have to touch the object to see if it is hard or soft, rough or smooth. We can say that this chair, table, and wall have the property of earth as they are hard to the touch. When the properties or quality of the earth is more, we say it is hard. If it is less, as in a cushion or pillow, we say it is soft. The property of earth can also be understood by lifting the object to assess its weight. The property of earth is more if it is heavy and less if it is light. The property or quality of each earth cannot be identified by seeing or hearing. When can you identify the property of the earth element? It can be identified only at the moment of touch. This is because the Suddhastaka are arising, decaying, and passing away swiftly even every moment in time. The property of that earth element or Patavi nature in an object can be identified by body sensing. Then water element. How do we identify the quality of Apo or water element in an object? The Lord Buddha said it is of the nature of cohesiveness or conjunction and collapsing or separating. These qualities are understood by inspection. A wall could be made of bricks, sand, cement, water, etc. How can we know it? Some objects need to be together to be seen. When separated into the original states, they will not be seen. When the parts forming the wall are separated, the wall disappears. When brought together, it forms a wall. How do we inspect this Apo state? If we can see and identify an object when the constituent parts are together and the original object cannot be identified and is no longer there when the constituent parts are separated, then this quality in an object is due to the Apo nature. The Apo nature can be identified by mental review. Fire or heat element. How do we identify the quality of Tejo in an object? It is by feeling or touching. When heat element is more in an object, we say it is hot. When heat is less, we say it is cold. The Tejo nature can be identified at a given moment of touch by body sensing. Then the air element. How do we identify the quality of Vayu or air element in an object? It moves forward by compressing itself. When you pour water onto a brick, the water thrusts itself into the brick. When we hammer a nail into the wall, the nail drives into the wall. This is because of the air element in the brick and the wall. This is called the nature of contraction or compression in Vayu. Because of the very shift arising and passing away of the Suddhastaka, that 8 primary elements, the nature of any object has to be decided at this very moment. You cannot identify the nature of objects based on past examinations because it is continuously arising and passing away, and its composition may have changed over time. In fact, its existence of 17 Chittakshana is such a minute time frame that is not even accounted for. The arising and passing away occurs faster than the speed of light. The examination is true only at the moment of inspection. For example, a fruit decays over time, its constitution. When it is raw, rib and over rib is not the same, even though the earth element is predominant throughout all 3 stages. The water element increases as it decays. Let us consider the composition of earth, water, fire, and air. Let us examine each of these to see if they have the 4 properties. Considering the earth, it has hardness, that is Patavi. The earth can be seen as earth when it is together. It becomes a heap of soil when separated, Apo. The earth can be hot or cooled, that is Tejo. It can be penetrated by the stick or a spade, that is Vayu. So the earth has the nature of Patavi, Apo, Tejo, and Vayu. It is a collection of all 4 elements. Then the water. It is smooth, has texture and can be felt. It comes together and disengages. Heat is there. Things can penetrate into water. Therefore, water has the nature of Patavi, Apo, Tejo, and Vayu. It is a collection of all those 4 elements. Then the fire, it can be touched. You may feel a very light touch, and it is smooth. It is hot and it can move apart and come together because of Apo nature. Anything can be pushed through the fire. Therefore, fire has the nature of Patavi, Apo, Tejo, and Vayu. It is a collection of all 4 elements. Then the air. You can feel the air flow to touch. There is smoothness in it. Air can come together and move apart. You can feel hot or cold air, and anything can move through the air. Therefore, air has Patavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu. It is a collection of all 4 elements. All animate and inanimate objects are made of the 4 elements Patavi, Apo, Tejo, and Vayu. Therefore, inanimate objects, including the bodies of living beings, are a collection of all these 4 elements. Therefore, we can surmise that all matter is constituted of the 4 primary objects. This investigation to prove the properties of an object has to be done by oneself in this very moment. One must traverse in Dhamma to understand this concept. Identification of objects that cannot be touched. We just examined earth, water, fire and air and demonstrated to ourselves that we could identify the four great elements in each of them. Can we inspect any object in the universe and identify their composition? How about the sun, moon and the stars? Can we examine them to see if they are made up of the Suddhastaka or 8 primary properties of all these states of matter? We cannot inspect these things because we cannot touch them or break them apart to examine. We can distinguish the star, moon and sun by their color. If all, at least one property can be identified, then we can surmise that it is a collection of all these 8 because they arise and pass away together. How about unseen realms such as heaven and hell? Have you gone to heaven or to hell to know about the things existing there? No. For that we have to do a common inspection. Objects too far away to touch that we see and refer to as form, rupa, are also an image made up of Suddhastaka because there is color in the form. Whatever we see is made up of Suddhastaka. Whatever we can see in the whole world is made up of Suddhastaka. Those which we can see in the past and can see in the present are also made up of Suddhastaka. We know that if we can touch an object, then it is made up of Suddhastaka because the Patavi Dhatu has been identified. What do you have in the eye? We can touch the eye and know that it is formed by the 8 qualities or nature of matter. Similarly, the ear, nose, tongue, body and brain are all referred to as form and made up of swiftly arising and passing of Suddhastaka. Then the color or image comes in contact with the eye and we see. The sound comes in contact with the ear and we hear. The smell comes in contact with the nose and we smell. The flavors, taste comes in contact with the tongue and we taste. Tactile sensation comes in contact with the body and feel. Thoughts come in contact with the brain and we remember. Form, sound, smell, taste, tactile sensation and thoughts all come in contact with the 6 sense base and then seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, body sensation and remembering happens. Now, what else is left to inspect in the whole world? Knowing of the world is limited to the capabilities of your 6 sense organs. You have to clearly understand that no one can have the ability to know anything other than the six sense organs. This is the only way that you can know or learn about an external object. If you can examine all matters that you can see, you will be able to know that the whole world is made of Suddhastaka. So you know the entire world is created by the 8 primary elements. All these are referred to as the material world. The 3 characteristics of the 8 pure primary properties. We now have to consider the 3 main characteristics of the Suddhastaka, that is, impermanence, emptiness or suffer, and not self, known as anicca, dukkha, and anatta. So we have to make sure what are these characteristics. Impermanence, anicca, instantaneous arising of formation and passing away, destruction of Suddhastaka, leaving nothing behind. Then the emptiness or suffer, known as dukkha, the lack of substance in all objects, or the emptiness of all objects, unsatisfactoriness. Then the third one, not self, or anatta, not controlled by anyone. The arising, passing away, and the resulting lack of substance or the emptiness is happening without a doer. So we have to understand the characteristics of these 8 pure primary elements clearly. So we consider about impermanence, or known as anicca. All that arises is prone to destruction. This is because of the apo nature of all matter. The Suddhastaka will not be in a collected constant state or togetherness forever. They are apt to separate and come together instantaneously. As we know in quantum physics, there are certain energy packets in matter that result in this movement. The nature of the water element, apo, results in a quality of cohesiveness and separation. The speed of cohesiveness and separation cannot be measured. Its speed is greater than of light. Therefore, it is referred to as anicca by Buddha. In 1960, an American by the name of Donald Glaser, PhD, received the Nobel Prize for Physics because he invented a machine to measure the number of times a subatomic particle change in 1 second. He called his instrument the bubble chamber and found that in 1 second a subatomic particle arises and vanishes 1 into 10 to the power 22 times. It was already known to scientists that these particles, which make up all substance or matter, arise and pass away with great rapidity. The invention of the bubble machine quantified their knowledge of subatomic particles. Over 2600 years ago, the Lord Buddha realized this truth. He realized that at every moment, the matter that comprised with we called self changed. The physical reality changed constantly at every moment. Through insight meditation and a concentrated mind, he penetrated deeply into his own nature and realized that the entire material structure is made up of indivisible particles, rupa, kalapa, that is, with 8 properties that he referred to as Suddhastaka, which are continuously arising and vanishing in the blinking of an eye. He said the particles are arising and passing away many trillions of times, unbelievable as it seems. This body, which appears to be solid and permanent, is in actual fact composed of indivisible particles that are arising and passing away continuously at incredible speed without any remainder. Science has now quantified the arising and passing away of subatomic particles with instrument. The Buddha realized this truth with his concentrated mind in the indivisible particles that has the nature of 8 pure primary properties or elements. If we consider our bodies, is there any part of our body that exists before birth, and will anything remain after death? No. Because there is no body as perceived before birth or after the death. Therefore, even in the present, there is no constant form or body as perceived by us. There is just a conglomeration of parts that together is perceived as a body. Each of these parts is comprised of many 8 pure indivisible primary properties that arise and pass away together with no remainder at a speed exceeding the speed of life. Therefore, it is impermanent. We need to know more about this phenomenon to understand the details of this process. If we look at an object, we are unable to identify this kind of phenomenon in the object because of the speed of the coming together and separation of the particles, and because the particles are very tiny and not visible. The phenomenon is explained in Dhamma as follows. The tiniest indivisible particle created by the 8 elements is referred to as a rupa kalapa, smaller than the neutron, proton and electrons. If we consider one single atom, it may consist of trillions of rupa kalapa. Each and every rupa kalapa will remain for only 17 chittakshana. One chittakshana is the time period of forming decaying and destroying of a sensing, feeling or mind. It is stated that within a second it is possible to create trillions of minds. So we have to understand that the time taken to create one single mind or sensing is extremely small, and there is no instrument to measure this. Instead, we have to use our intelligence and understand it by thinking and reflection. Using the following graph, some of the actions can be explained for the understanding of impermanence. In this graph, you can see the orange line marked to show one set of Rupa Kalapa. Those were created in first Shana moment of time, decay during 49 Shana, and destruct at the 51st Shana. All the Rupa Kalapa arised and passed away in this pattern. The 17 Chittakshana is equivalent to the time period of 51 Shana. You can see that before the first Rupa Kalapa destructs, within the time period of the first set, that another set of 8 properties has come into being. This set will destruct after the first set of Rupa Kalapa. This set may have a similar energy level, higher energy level or lower energy level, depending on the nourishment of the object and the lifespan of the object. If the energy level is higher, you can see the green and red lines. Then the previous energy level, orange line, we say the object or person is growing, and in the younger stages of life applies to plant and animals' lives. When the energy level is lower, yellow and white lines, then we say object or the person is older or in the latter stage of life and decaying fast. However, we need to clearly understand that each of these Rupa Kalapa is newly formed and there is nothing remaining from the previous set. In each instant, the first set of Rupa Kalapa is destroyed and a new set is created. There are many reasons and causes for the arising and destruction of the Rupa Kalapa. This information is stated in the higher teachings, that is known as Abhidhamma. What we need to understand is that each and every object formed as a result of the cohesing and separation of the 8 elements will only remain for 17 Chittakshana. In the second, an object may arise and destruct trillions of times. So we have to clearly understand that within a second, an object may arise and destruct trillions of times. A simple example of a water tank will explain this phenomenon. If the tank is full and we simultaneously extract and fill the same amount of water from the tank, a person observing the tank may think that the tank is full all the time. But this is not the absolute truth. Also, no one can separate the water that is in the tank and the new water that is added to the tank. This is what happens to every object in this world. This is what the Lord Buddha referred to as impermanence. Then we have to know the suffering or emptiness known as dukkha. Let us consider our body or any other object as an example. If there are any part of our body or object that exists before the birth or creation of the object, and will anything remain after the death or destruction of our body or any object? No. Why is that? Because there is no such body or object existing before or after the death of the living being or destruction of the object. If so, in the present, we are unable to describe this as a body or an object. There is no such a body or object. The body or object is empty and without substance. There are only 8 pure primary elements. If we burn a candle, nothing remains at the end. Suffering is there in the world because living beings have this false belief or feeling regarding the true nature of this process of birth and destruction. They think the body and the objects are constant, permanent form. After the destruction, nothing remains, everything vanishes. Even though we are unable to see this process, this is what happens to the world at the end. It vanishes. This emptiness or lack of substance of all things is referred to as dukkha or emptiness or suffer by the Lord Buddha. So we have to consider the non-self or anatta. There is no person or method to stop or control the arising and passing away or emptiness, anicca and dukkha of the 8 pure primary properties. This is a natural phenomenon that happens without a doer. No one can escape from these actions. It is a universal law. Therefore, the Lord Buddha referred to it as non-self or not self, anatta. The body, sack of skin filled with sludge. All that we eat changes into waste matter after digest. Is all the matter that we ate and drank, like butter, cheese, milk, etc., any longer there? No, the Lord Buddha has said that From the top of the head to the feet, this body is filled with all kinds of putrid secretions and excretions. It is known as Uddam Padatala, Ado Kesamattaka Tacha Pariyantam Puram Nanapakarasa Asuchino Pachavekkati. When you smell extria, we know that it is also touching the five sense organs of our body. It is coming in contact with your mouth and whole body. This is because you smell the excrement when minute particles with the 8 properties come in contact with the nose. If they come in contact with the nose, then they also come in contact with the mouth and the rest of the body. The body is just not sensitive enough to feel it. When you go home and kiss your child, your spouse, or any other person, what are you kissing? You are kissing a body filled with excrement and putrid secretion. When you cry for a loved one's death, aren't you crying for a loss of a heap of excrements? Do you have to weep for the loss of the heap of excrement? Now, all along in your life, what have you been doing? What should you do when you understand the true nature of the body? You tire yourself daily by doing to work, earning money, accumulating wealth and possession. For what? What do you collect? For whom are you collecting? Just for a heap of excrement. Either you have not understood what was explained, or else you don't like to stop enjoying your own excrement. As monks, we do not desire or crave to enjoy excrement. We have renounced all worldly attachments. We eat whatever is offered to us and live a simple life of non-attachment. Our purpose is the ending of birth by the realization of enlightenment. The Lord Buddha said that there are 4 groups of persons who cannot understand the Dhamma: rustic, unwise, ignoble, and misdirected. When you are in flames, don't you want to step out of the fire? Can you escape from it by waiting for others to do it for you? No one can do this for you. You have to understand the instruction correctly and work towards enlightenment. Do you understand that you have been traversing in samsara in the darkness of ignorance? This body is made up of blisters, wounds, various ailments, and disgusting secretions and excrement. This is the real state of the world. What happens to this heap of excrement? It all disappears without a reminder at the end. In short, all beings and objects, matter, are made up of 8 pure primary properties, that is, image, sound, smell, taste, body feeling, thought, all that are termed as external forms. All of your sensory organs are also created by these 8 elements: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, brain, all are termed as internal form. All these are distinct for destruction. So you have to clearly understand all the external objects or form and internal form or internal sense organs are creation of 8 pure primary elements. You have nothing inside your body except for these ever-changing attributes. Then what do we refer to when we use the word self? It is just a cohesion and separation of the 8 pure primary properties at a rapid speed. This happens because of the property of fluidity or water we called APO. What has happened to all the food you have consumed? All has transformed into nutrients, excrement and waste matter. The nutrients has been absorbed by the organs and are decaying and moving towards death. Understanding this truth, do you want to repeat the same mistake of remaining in samsara? Are you ready to discard and let go of this body and work towards enlightenment? What happened to the 10,000 persons sent by King Suddhodana to bring the Lord Buddha back to Kapilavatthu? Did they return? No. All of them ordained as disciples of the Lord Buddha. Why did they not return? After hearing the Dhamma, they understood the emptiness of the body. Spit a little onto your palm and try to eat the saliva on your palm. Can you do it? No. Why not? You cannot do it because it is putrid and disgusting. However, it was in your mouth a moment ago. Why it is desirable when inside the body and putrid and disgusting when it is outside? It is because you have not understood the constitution of the body and your mind, and has not understood the true nature or state of the body. You have not inspected the parts inside and understood their reality. You have not really seen this body as it is. That is why the Lord Buddha has said that the entire body forms top of your head to bottom of your feet that is covered by the sap of skin is filled with sludge.